And as they are taught by a believer, they see that it's Jesus of Nazareth. That's the only person it could be in all the world. So, by reading Isaiah 53, many, many people have been brought to faith in Jesus Christ. In fact, there was a skeptic named Porphyry who lived from 234 to 305 AD. A skeptic, a philosopher, who said that Isaiah 53 so describes Jesus Christ that it must have been written after Jesus Christ was born, lived, and died. Because it's such a perfect description of him, it had to be written afterward, not before. But as you know, it was written. It's even in the Dead Sea Scrolls. It was written long before Jesus ever walked on the earth. At the back of this book, Mitch Glaser tells his story. And he gives a story of 6 or 7 other Jewish people like him. He says he was raised in a Jewish home in Queens, New York. He says that he went to a Jewish synagogue. He went to Jewish teachings. His mother and father were family by the Jews. And he says that they were not even allowed to go to church, of course. They were not allowed to even read the New Testament. They were not allowed to even have a New Testament. And they believed that the New Testament was heresy, and that it was written by Gentiles, and that it is not even, that Jesus was not even a Jew. That he's some Gentile that is worshipped, but not a Jew. And many are surprised when they find out Jesus is a Jew. He's a part of our own race. Really? Could that be? I know when I was in Jerusalem a few years back, I went to what is called the Tomb of David. It's really not his tomb. It's a Byzantine thing, but it's a synagogue that meets there. And so we went in there. And I pulled out my New Testament. I had it in my pocket here. And I was going to read what Peter said on the day of Pentecost. Behold, the tomb of David is here with us today. But Jesus' tomb is empty. He was resurrected. And as soon as I got my New Testament out, my Jewish guy said, put that away. Put that away. You're going to get thrown out of here. Why? I'm amazing. We do not read the New Testament. It's heresy. But you know, from Isaiah 53, the Old Testament, the Tanakh, as the Jews call it, the first covenant, speaks of Jesus. And so he gives 6 stories in here of how people discovered Isaiah 53. They didn't even know it was in the Bible, in their Bible. So he tells a story that he grew up in Queens. He went to California to go to college. And while he was out there, he ran into some believers, and they began to teach him about Jesus. And he couldn't believe it. He said, no, Jesus is not a Jew. No, that's not about Jesus. No, we're told never to talk about Jesus. No. But after teaching for several hours and over a period of days, he began to say, this is really Jesus of Nazareth. And this is in my Bible. And this has been fulfilled. And so he tells this story, that he decided while he was out in California that he was going to quit where he was going to school. He was going to go home, and he was going to go to a Bible college. And so here's what happened when he got home. My mother said, are you going back to college? As a university dropout, I was a Jewish mother's worst nightmare, almost. I'm planning on going back to college, I replied, and then sort of coughed. As I said, it would be a Bible college. My mother looked at me and asked, what's a Bible college? That's where they study the Bible, I responded. My mother looked at me quizzically and said, well, why are you going to study the Bible? I told both of my parents that it was a wonderful book and that everyone should be reading it, and after all, I'd been a good student at Hebrew school. My mother and father paused and looked at one another, at which point I realized that I could not continue avoiding the subject that was foremost in my mind. I told them of my decision to become a follower of Jesus. My father gasped, and my mother burst into tears, and they began arguing with each other. My mother accused my father of not raising me religious enough, and my father accused my mother of raising me overly religious. They also expressed anger at my grandparents for being so old-fashioned and orthodox. At that point, my parents asked me to leave the house. They began laying down the law regarding with whom I could speak, with whom I could not speak, about Jesus, as well as what I could and could not do regarding my beliefs. They said that I could not speak to my grandparents, neighbors, or my sisters. Of course, I told them that was not acceptable. My mother then forbade me from bringing crosses into the house, going to church, or reading the New Testament. Back and forth it went. That evening, which was supposed to be my last night at home, I asked my mom if I could show her why I believed that Jesus was the Messiah. She said, yes, as long as you do not use the New Testament. So I sat down and